Welcome to the filMNetwork podcast. I'm very excited about this guest that we have with us, Adam Colt. He's the organizer, director. You can lay out your director of the Z-Fest Film Festival. Very popular event here in Minnesota. If you haven't been a part of it, it really is a great time, and highly recommend you check it out. But we're going to talk a little bit about that here today with Adam. So Adam, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
So you're director of Z-Fest. Did you start out as that? Did you grow into that? Are you the founder of Z-Fest?
It was my idea from the very beginning. It was a fun situation. We had a little bit of downtime. Some years, the film industry ebbs and flows. And so we were in a year where there was a lull. And the boss of Z Systems, John, basically asked all the employees, like, hey, everyone think of some creative marketing ideas. And I said, well, other than like painting weird things on your vans, I said, why don't we start a film fest?
Well,
and everyone said, you're nuts. That's kind of crazy. And I'm like, well, that's who I am.
Yeah.
I'm a crazy guy. So I'm like, all right, let's try it.
So the first year you guys did it, how many submissions, people participating?
We had 18 the first year, so almost 20.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought that was pretty good because, we did a brand new festival. We only had like 3 months to put it together. And so word of mouth. But I think I had just participated in the 48, like the year before that. So I was really jazzed up about the whole concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just like, you know what? I got to do it. I got to do it different. I got to do it better. It's like, because I love there's a lot of things I love about the 48. Some things that we all don't love about the 48. If you've ever competed in that. So.
Yeah.
Just the fact that it's 48.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's really cool. So obviously you've grown over time. You were just telling me the number last year is a record number of submissions. So how have you seen that progress over these years?
It ebbs and flows, just like everything else. But after the first 3 or 4 years, we had like 20 submissions like the first 3 years. And then something popped, and we went up to like the 40s. And then for the next couple of years, we were in the 50s. And then we kind of hung out in the 60s, the 50s to 70s for the last few years, with a dip during COVID. I think we went down to 48 teams during COVID, but that's still a lot.
Right. Yeah. So did you have to go virtual for that?
No. Luckily, we had everything all set, and we had already had the screenings. So the Best of Fest got shut down like a week. The governor shut down the state like a week before Best of Fest. So we did have to go Best of Fest live, but the screenings had already happened.
Okay. I'm assuming you did away with the awards ceremony.
Well, no, we handed out we virtually handed them.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. That was the awards ceremony.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I have to commend you for the work that you put in, because it really is a great time. I knew that this year I wanted to be a team leader for a film after it. Last year was my first time attending, and I had such a great time doing it, and just not even participating in it, really just going and attending and seeing all the films and meeting all the people is really, it's an incredible event.
We have a good attendance.
So,
yeah. It's when I tell people it sells out, I'm not kidding.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be in the big theater, get your tickets fast, because it goes. And I think we sold out in like 2.5 days last year.
Yeah.
So it was pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you get that turnout again this year. I'm sure you will. Yeah. So obviously a lot goes into putting this whole thing together. All the organizing, all the well, you said you don't really curate, everybody gets to screen, but sort of lay out the mission of the festival, what makes it different, stuff like that.
Well, I think since the very beginning, we were always focused on quality instead of just, the 48 is kind of what we stole the idea from the 48, and I'll say that flat out. Yes, we did. But the 48, okay, so I read an article about a Disney VP, right? And back in the days, I think it was the 80s, Disney had a different kind of thing where, like, we're not going to make blockbuster films. We're just going to make a bunch of really average films and make a ton of money, because we're going to have so many average films that it'll make up for the blockbusters, right?
Right.
We're not going to try to find the best, the cream of the crop. So, and not like the Apple Dumpling Gangs and just the weird little family films that they were kicking out.
Yeah.
And what they found was that it took just as much effort to make a regular film as it does to make a blockbuster film. I mean, it takes just as much effort to make a bad film as it does to make a good film. You know, so I thought, these people are struggling to make a great film in 48 hours. And if they just had a little bit more time to tweak this or tweak that, they'd really have something they're proud of. And since they're already investing a lot of their time and their energy and money, because every film, even though it's low budget, still requires some sort of, you know, whether it's craft services or
Right.
I got to rent this or rent that, you know. So there's money involved. And so I thought, let's let these people really make something they can be proud of. And that's another reason why I took away the genre. I mean, the genre drawing is really fun. You know, like you don't know what you're going to get, and you're forced to make.
Right.
But I'm like, no, these are their films. Let's let people tell their story their way, and not force them to take a genre that they're not really interested in.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that I tweaked with the 48.
Yeah.
You know, so that was my thinking behind it.
Yeah, that's awesome. But the Z-Fest does have some guidelines of its own.
Yeah.
What are those guidelines?
Well, just a control element, really. And I keep trying to take that away, but everyone says, no, we love it. Keep it in. So I'm like, all right, we'll make it simple, but we'll keep it in. So we've kind of, there was a year where people were complaining about other teams cheating and whatnot. And I'm just like, okay, fine, we'll lock down the control elements. So that year we had a really weird structure of control elements. It was like simple things like a door opening, right? Or someone saying hello, the word hello, or whatever. So it was really easy to work into your script, but there was like 10 of them, right?
Oh, gotcha.
And people were like, no, we hate this.
Yeah.
And so then we had like, you know, some jewelry like a Z pin or something like that, and glasses and some just weird proppy things. And I'm just like, yeah, that's too kitschy.
Yeah.
You know, so like, let's get rid of all that. So like last year was car keys. The year before that, it was a coffee mug. You know, and it's just a generic mug. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so you could have cheated. You could have been working on a film for 4 years and had a coffee mug in it and qualified for Z-Fest. But we're such a small community that I think everyone who's wanted to participate has already participated.
Yeah.
And so every year we're encouraging filmmakers to make new material.
Right.
We're giving them the deadline they need to encourage them to get off their butts and really add to their portfolio.
Yeah.
And I think that's really fun. That's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things I really admire about you and the way that you handle things is anybody who's ever submitted to festivals or been a part of these competitions knows that there are people that like just have no patience for you, are transparent about what they need from you, things like that. And you do that totally differently. Like you give your cell phone out to people and you're like, if you need anything, just let me know. And so I really have to commend not only the patience it takes to do that.
Yeah, Adam's on call 24/7.
I really am. As long as you text me. If you Facebook me, it might take a day or two. So I'm like, yeah. So the thing about it is I'm not from the art world. I'm not from the film world. I'm really a technician. And so that was one of the things that I really loved about the quality, because we were doing HD like the very first year. So we've been doing HD for 15 years, and we've been doing the DCPs probably for 13 years, which is way more than most festivals. And so we've always been high quality HD material.
Yeah.
And back in the early days, it would take us 8 hours to make a DCP for one film. So we really invested weeks and weeks of our time to do that for these people. Nowadays, with the faster computers, I can get it done in about 16 minutes per film.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a lot better. Going from 8 hours down to 16 minutes is a super improvement. And I was one of the first people to most of the people know that we use DCP-O-Matic, which is a free software, which is great because we were one of the first supporters of it. I mean, if you look in the credits of DCP, you'll see my name and you'll see Z-Fest in there.
Oh, really?
Because I was helping him find his glitches, find his bugs, and like, no, this isn't going to work. And like,
no kidding.
What are you doing there? Why are you doing that? So I actually have him I have the programmer, the developer on speed dial.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, I've used DCP-O-Matic before, and it's pretty nifty.
It's a really good tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that he's got it as a, donate only software. I don't know if he still has it but that way, but that for a long time has been donate only, which is great. Carl Hetherington.
Okay.
Is his name. Yeah.
Very cool.
So I've been about quality, and what I found is being part of the director of Z-Fest, I've had to kind of interface with some of these other festival directors, Min Spiff, and like we were working with the Walker Arts Center guys for a little bit and stuff like that. And the point is, these people are really art critics. They're film critics. You know what I'm saying? They're looking, and even TCFF, they take in films from all over the world and they curate things, right? And we were more about the fun, friendly competition, like the 48. And we're really encouraging new filmmakers to really come out and try something, or encouraging old filmmakers, right? Filmmakers who've done it for a while, to do something new and something maybe experimental, something that push their own boundaries a little bit, and not worry about the consequences, because there's no real art people judging your work. You know what I'm saying? It's more of a friendly competition.
Well, that moves right into one of the things I was really looking forward to discussing with you, is this idea that certain films play better at Z-Fest.
Yeah.
So the foundation for this question was actually the film I made for this year when I was showing it to the team, getting comments. One of the things I heard from a number of people was like, if you take this out, I think it'll play better at Z-Fest.
Because it will.
Well, I just thought that was an interesting comment.
It is.
Because it seems to suggest that, I don't know, there's a consistency to the kinds of films that win at Z-Fest, when from what you just said, and you've told me that before, you're always looking for new, unique things.
Exactly. Now, there's a general rule of thumb that comedies do well at Z-Fest. And that's because it's easy to tell a joke in 7 minutes.
Yep.
It's easy to get a punchline done, right? But Andrew Hunt, he won 3 years in a row, and not in a row, but pretty close to in a row. And one of his films was called Personal Space, and it was about a woman who didn't know it, but there was another person living in their crawl space. And it was no comedy at all.
Yeah.
And it won. You know what I'm saying? It was just done extremely well. And there wasn't even very much dialogue in it.
Yeah.
And he did kind of make a comedy about a vacuum cleaner that cleaned up a dead guy.
Okay. Yeah.
And but it was really well done. And there was like 2 or 3 lines of dialogue in the whole film. And it was just about a Roomba, hacking up this dead body and cleaning it up before the owner got home. And so those kind of films are kind of experimental, kind of comedy, but yet, there was a really great film about a homeless guy, and I can't remember his name, but the homeless guy actually attended the screenings, and we were all really moved, and it was a really great film, and there was nothing comical about it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So there's a lot of films that do really, really well.
That was a great film. I remember that.
Yeah, and then we had the Overpass Light Brigade did a really wonderful documentary about their light work and stuff like that. And so, they were the first real documentary we had, and we didn't have a documentary category before that, really, because no one had thought about entering a documentary. So they won Best Documentary that year, which was great, and they did really well in our top 10.
So why do you? So the sort of perception that comedies do better at Z-Fest, you think is just derived out of?
It's easy to tell a punchline.
Yeah.
So maybe not such a great filmmaker can make a really funny film that touches the judges, because there's not maybe they're not the best at lighting, or they don't have the best orchestrator or whatever. Yeah. They don't have the finances or the team put together to do that. You can still tell a pretty good punchline, with a comedy. Okay. One of my favorite films is Mi-Fi. It's about a stay-at-home loser who's still living with his mom, who basically, because he's so lazy, he invents a machine that he can put his hand through a portal and grab a beer off the counter, Yeah. It was just really well done, really low budget. The lighting wasn't great, the sound design wasn't great, but it was an amazing film.
Yeah.
And it was really fun.
Interesting. Yeah, so that kind of plays into another thing I was thinking about relative to this idea, which was when it comes to judging and Z-Fest judges, do you think there is a focus more, or is there any focus put on objectivity, like this lighting is objectively better or worse than this other film, this cinematography is objective, and that plays into their decision?
I think it always does, and I think we all do that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're making a film and it's really poorly lit and the sound is obnoxious, it's going to take you out of the film.
Right.
You know, because you can't see it, you can't hear it, it's not cohesive. So I think what we've done is by listing, you know, and having awards for best lighting, best editing, you know, best sound design, best, you know, orchestration, it really tells people what you're looking for. It's just like Hollywood. You're looking for, but the films that win are usually the films that do everything well.
Right.
You know, and they just have a team that knows how to do it, put it all together, which is kind of why we started this all-star category thing.
Yeah.
Because unlike the Twin City Film Fest and some of the other international, Minneapolis St. Paul International Film Fest, and even, you know, Catalyst, all of those film festivals are bringing in films from all over the country. We're kind of just the Midwest, you know, and really mostly Minnesota. Every once in a while we get a team from Wisconsin and we'll get a team from South Dakota, but mostly Minnesota. And so we have the same fish in the same pond year after year after year. And I'm like, okay, some of these fish have become sharks.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're really eating the other fish.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's take the sharks out of the fish pond and put them in a shark pond and call them all-stars, you know? So that every year now, there's going to be a fish that graduates to becoming a shark.
I see.
And goes into the shark pond to fight with the other sharks, you know? So it's just kind of a way to make it a little more fair and have somebody new win each year. And yet still recognizing the sharks. Because we want the sharks to come back and play. They always do such a good film, you know?
Yeah.
We don't want to discourage them from participating and or winning. So they need recognition and acknowledgement just as well as the up-and-comers.
So the All-Stars are exclusive to people who have already won
First place.
So
if you took second, you're still big, you're still a fish.
Okay.
You haven't moved into the shark pond yet.
Okay. So you haven't come across where somebody who's doing their film the first time, they just make such a good film that you're like, oh, you've already graduated. You're competing with the sharks.
Nope, they have to win it.
Okay.
They have to get that first place trophy.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. That was another thing I was going to ask you about is like the fairness as far as you get such a wide variety of people. You get, you know, like 10-year-olds directing films that go in, and you get people who have, like you said, won 3 years in a row.
Exactly.
So managing that, yeah.
It's tricky. It's tough because we're not pulling in films from around the world. You know, we don't have new people playing every year. We have the same teams that really love the festival and want to keep making films. And it's great because every year we're seeing them up their game.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, like Vanessa, you know, she killed it last year. I mean, she really brought her A game to every film she made. And she says, yes, I always bring my A game. Yes, Vanessa, you always bring your A game. But the last year, you really, you know, I need some magic formula. You just stepped it up a little bit. So
that was the peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly was awesome. Yeah, and I think she even worked on The Surrogate and a bunch of the other films too. I think so. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I think she worked on at least 3 or 4 films last year.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So, you know, you sort of talked about it. It's easy to come up with a punchline. If you are interested in making another genre, like let's say drama, what would your advice be to somebody who's like, I got this idea to make a drama, but I really want it to be successful in 7 minutes?
Then you have to lean on characters that are already developed. You when somebody walks on screen, you actually have to know right away what their character is, because you don't have time. You've only got 7 minutes.
Right.
You don't have time to establish their character, right? So it's great to use, you know, easily recognizable, formulaic type characters. And then the trick is, though, is you want to tell a new story. You want to tell an interesting story. Portray those characters in a way that haven't been done before. You know, So if you're doing a drama, which we've had several really good dramas, but a lot of people consider, like, I want to say it's kind of an action horror drama where you're murdering somebody.
Right.
I don't know what, but drama covers that a lot of times. It's so, we've seen that film over and over and over so many times that the judges are just like, yeah, this has been done before. It's like, yeah, you did it okay. Your lighting is good. Your sound is good. Your acting's okay. But the story just kind of, we've seen somebody being kidnapped and tied up and held for ransom, so many times. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Meatball Madness, even though they did an improv for that year, they won with that film. And they said, let's just have this Addams Family type family sitting around this table, and we're going to improv all the lines. And it was just really turned out really, really well, obviously because of the editing, because of the sound design, and they had seasoned actors. However, they did bring in a brand new, fresh young actress, who I think she was like 15 or 14 at the time, and it was her first film, I believe. So anyways, so it was great that they bring in, and that's what we're seeing too, is a lot of people are realizing these kids are just killing it.
Yeah.
Like, kids used to, in Z-Fest, we like see kids in films like, yeah, this film sucks, whatever. But now the kids are just really killing it.
Yeah. Yeah,
they're really bringing their A game. And I think the directors are realizing that, like, yeah, if we work it right, we can get these kids to do the right things. Yeah, so it's really great to see the young actors coming up. I happen to be a young actor in Minneapolis. I used to act when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you still act?
No. This is funny that I'm even remembering this now. When I was in 5th grade, we had a field trip for school, and we went to the Children's Theater, and I saw Little Mermaid, and it was like, oh my God, that is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Huh. And so I went to audition for theater school, for the Children's Theater School, and they're like, no, you have to be in 7th grade or 12 years old to start, because we're not taking anybody younger than 12. And so I had to wait 3 years, because I was 11 in 7th grade. And then, like, when I got into 7th grade, I went and auditioned with 450 kids, and I think they took like 30 kids, and I was one of the 30 that made it.
Nice.
Yeah. And out of that, I got a gig at the Guthrie. I got a gig at the Chimera Theater, which was in St. Paul, and
I remember Chimera.
Yeah. I did To Kill a Mockingbird there, and I did The Rivals at the Guthrie, and this was back in the 70s. So I was on my way, and I started auditioning for commercials, and I was auditioning for movies, and I wasn't like, when the whole 16 Candles and the whole Brat Pack were coming out. I was auditioning with Matt Dillon and all those other guys for other films. I was kind of that age-ish, and so I was on my way. Yeah. And then my mom got pregnant with my younger brother and said, I can't drive you around anymore. And we lived out in the burbs, in the sticks, and there was no public transportation, and there was no way to get to town. And
dang.
I was just like, oh. And plus, I was having an awkward situation because I started school a year early, so I graduated at 17. And because of that, I was really tiny, even though huge now. Yeah. When I graduated, I was 120 pounds. And I was just this tiny little kid. And whenever I went to auditions, they'd be like, you're like 12. We need a 17-year-old. So I'm like, no, here's my license. I'm 17. Yeah. They're like, no, you look like you're 12. Which Hollywood loves that now. If I'd gone out to Hollywood, I would have had probably a killer career.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, so then I gave that up and I started into music, which is kind of what I do a lot of nowadays. So music production, recording, and writing.
For film or just
for albums? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
For my own projects.
You sing or?
I do.
Oh, wow, interesting. I didn't know that. I was going to ask you about some of the other roles you do, because I know I've seen your name in like casting crew lists or seen you in pictures of different film sets shooting around. Just
last year, I kind of went into I did the 48 with Damien's team, and then so I did a whole sound design project too for the 50/50, which was fun. So they came to me at the last second and said, "Can you please fix this?" Actually, they didn't even say that. They came to me and said, "What do you think of this?" And I said, "Honest opinion, or just want me to, Yeah." And she's like, "Honest," and I'm like, No, it's not going to work. And I took like 3 days of my life to like totally redo the whole thing from scratch. You know, sound design, re-recorded all the audio and everything. So
very cool.
So I do that too. And right before Louis Anderson died, he was working with a couple of writers, and they were trying to pitch this new type of Twilight Zone TV show. And they said, well, we can't get them to bite because they don't understand it because it's kind of out there.
Yeah.
And they said, can you design this? Can you do an audio play for us? And I did. And they said, wow. They're like, this is better than the stuff we're listening to on Audible from like the Marvels and stuff. Where did you do this? I'm like, in my garage. You know? And so it's nice because that Wes, I think Wes Black is the director on that one. But he's still pitching that out there, and I think he might get a deal with it pretty soon.
Wow!
So that's kind of fun. So I do a lot of other weird projects like that too.
Okay, so you're capable of doing like post sound
design, you know, orchestra. I'm not great at orchestration. I'm okay at writing original pieces of music. That is something we could talk about quickly.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand what we broke it out into 2 different categories: best orchestration and best original music. I felt that was kind of the best way to do it, because if you write, like, let's just use a country song, for example, right? Mm-hmm. A country song is not orchestration. Mm-hmm. There's no real orchestral instruments. It's not following the ebb and flow of the film, but it might be a really good, touching song.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Yep. And the orchestration is obviously meant to sound for picture. Mm-hmm. You know, it's meant to ebb and flow, you know, and a lot of times it's really sparse, just a violin, trill or something like that. Whereas, you know, a full music. So basically we said that there needs to be 2 different categories here for the original music and for the orchestration. And of course we've always had sound design, and we kind of clump dialogue, sound design and everything and general audio together because you just can't break it out into too many categories. The award show is long enough as it is already. It is really long.
I have fun with it, though. I like that it's that long.
I remember the difference from... So I did my first CFest film, I think it was the 3rd year.
Okay.
When I did the interview.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
That was a while ago, yeah. And I think there were just like a few awards given out then. And compared to now, it's a lot.
We did... so the first couple of years we had a really simple award show at the end of the screening where it was like the 50-50 or, you know, 48, where you would just go up and just get an award at the very end.
Yeah.
You know, but somebody, I don't even know, but Margie and John were actually the original designers and conceptualizers of the whole Oscar style award show. And the reason we ended up at the Radisson was because we found we were looking for a place in the Mall of America for the Mall of America Theater, because we were using the Mall of America Theater for Best of at that time. Mm-hmm. And they had a room downstairs, but it wasn't really that great. So we're like, what about the Radisson next door? And they were nice enough to let us come and use their ballroom.
Okay.
So we've been doing that for, I think, 13, 14 years now.
Wow.
No, sorry.
That long, though.
12 years. So.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's when it really grew from that simple awards. And we're like, okay, what other kind of awards can we give out? And I did a Google search, and it turns out the MTV Awards had Best Kiss, Best Fight Scene, and all that stuff. I stole that literally directly from the MTV Awards, and put it into our, into our festival as well. And obviously the standard thing: best editing, best directing, best lighting, best cinematography. Those things are pretty standard.
So, is there not a best writing, best screenplay?
There is a best screenplay, best writing.
Okay. But that's separate.
It is completely separate. It used to be like people would watch the film and say, yeah, that's the best story. Mm-hmm. But now we're actually submitting all of scripts to a screenwriter ahead of time. And they go through all the scripts and pick the winner. So it's based strictly on the script.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
I like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So they don't even get to see the films. So.
Oh, they don't?
Nope. They could if they wanted to, but none of the screenwriters have ever asked us to see the films. I guess they just love screenwriting that much.
Okay. So very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really interesting that you kind of have been pulling inspiration from different festivals, different award shows to put this together. What has the response been from the people who have attended? Because I know you take, feedback really seriously, and incorporate it. Have you gotten generally positive?
Yeah, I think overall, people a lot of times are like, the award show's too long, and we took that feedback, and last year we split the screening and put it back into an actual theater.
Yeah.
So when we were at Mall of America, we actually did the screening in the fourth level, and then everyone walked over to the ballroom and did the award show. But then Mall of America shut down to revamp their theaters, and then they shut down again during COVID. So it's like, it was really hard to work without theater.
Right.
So we said, we don't really want people, we're going to lose a lot of people if we have to have them drive miles from one event to another. So let's just show the films here. And that saved us a lot of time and some money, and it helped us get through some of the lean years. And that worked. And now we're just like, you know what? People really want that theatrical experience, and that's really what it's about, seeing it on the big screen. So
for sure.
we pushed it back into the theaters and separated it. So that'll be hopefully a week or two before the actual award show. So now,
So I have a question about, I've always found it hard when critiquing or judging films to do so across styles, genres, everything like that. How do you, I mean, I know you're not a judge per se, but I assume you have your opinions on all of these things, decide which you believe are the better ones. And then in talking with the judges, like how do they reckon with that sort of?
That's a good question. We really haven't addressed that issue. Being such a small festival that we are, we're not South by Southwest,
right?
Cannes or anything. We haven't had to really deal with the fairness of different genres. So it's like, how do you compare a documentary to a comedy? How do you compare a drama to an animated film? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Those questions have never really been answered. But what I can say is that a film will speak for itself. It'll either be really good or it won't be so good. You know what I'm saying? And so it doesn't matter if it's an animation or a documentary. If it's really good, it'll probably make top 10. Okay. Because the judges they're looking at everything all the way around. And if a film touches them, the documentary about the homeless person touched a lot of people. It was really well done, and it had a really strong emotional message. And so it really well in top 10.
Yeah. Interesting. So kind of going into a lot of the work that we don't see as people submitting. Obviously, the screenings themselves are a lot of work and very involved. Go into what all goes behind putting that together.
Well, originally we took all the films from everybody, and then we made, from the HD films, we made a YouTube version. We posted it for the judges, and that took days. And now I've kind of figured out, hey, I know I'm putting more work on everybody, but if everybody does their thing once, I have to do everything 70 times, for 70 teams. So it's like, it takes hours and hours off of my time and speeds the whole process up. Right. So I do dump a lot of work on the filmmakers, and I know that. We are considered a high maintenance film festival. I'm proud of that, I guess. But it's important, because if I don't have your description, I have to watch your film again and figure out what I'm going to say, and what I'm going to say about your film might not be what you want me to say about your film. Right. So a two sentence description from you, I just copy and paste that into the program. That's awesome. Right. So that's what I need. That your minute of time saves me 10 to 15, 20 minutes of my time. Right. Finding your film, watching it again, deciding what the right words are, typing it all up. So it's important that we kind of dumped a lot of that work back onto the filmmakers. And one of those things is dumping the YouTube judging version, which is why we say don't break your link. Because if you break your link, it's already embedded in our system and it doesn't change. And so you can't, first of all, you can't update your judging version, which is great. So nobody can cheat and update their film after the fact. But secondly, if they break their link, then it won't show for the judges. And I'm just like, okay, if you're going to do that, you're just going to be disqualified. If you're dumb enough to break your link, you're going to be disqualified. So don't break your links. Yeah. And then I figured, hey, instead of me uploading, 15 to 20 nomination clips per film, I'll let the filmmakers decide what categories they feel like they're nominated for, and then do that themselves. We do have to curate. Sometimes we'll get 50 nominations for a certain category. We'll curate that down to the top 30 or 15, sometimes 20, sometimes 30 to the judges, so they don't have to do quite as much.
Sure.
But the point is like, a lot of that work is on you. The work that's on me is still pretty intense. I have to take everybody's films and strip off all the audio, and I level all the audio off to minus 18 dB, if everyone knows, LUFS, minus 18. So if you give me a minus 18 film, it won't be touched.
Yeah.
Okay. If you submit low, I'll bring it up. If it's hot, I'll bring it down. And then I put a hard limiter in at minus 6 dB. So all of those door slams and everything else that clips out the theater speakers and just makes them rumble and crack, gets eliminated. So that doesn't have a problem there. So once I do all that audio processing, I have to remarry those audio files back to the films. The one exception is that if you're doing a surround film, I'm basically saying, hey, if you're advanced enough to do a surround film and you know what you're doing with audio, I'm not going to do anything with it.
Sure.
So I'm not going to. If your levels are low, they're going to be low. If your levels are hot, they're going to be a little hot. You know what I'm saying? So usually I don't mess with the surround too much. We only get about 4 or 5 surround entries each year.
Okay.
So I figure those guys are pro. They know what they're doing. I won't mess with their stuff.
Right.
I still get yelled at. They're like, "What happened?" I'm like, "I'm looking at your stems here for the surround, and there's nothing in the surround channel. So don't yell at me.
Right.
Yell at your sound guy because there's no audio content there."
Yeah.
Wait. There's one explosion at the very end. I see it. It's like, yeah. So I got yelled at for color correction one year. I'm like, no, we don't color correct your films.
Yeah.
We do standard Rec 709. Rec 709, everybody. And they're like, yeah, it looked really, really red. I'm like, yeah, I talked to your colorist. I'm like, it wasn't. We do not change your color of your film. Now, that said, there was days in the old times before ProRes where we did accept different formats. We accepted Blackmagic's Cineform, and we accepted Avid's HD. I haven't even remember it anymore. HDXD. What? It's the 4 letters. Come on.
AVCH.
No. Yeah. Anyways, DNxHR. That's what it is. DNxHR, and then they went to DNxHD. So those formats are slightly askew from ProRes as far as color content. When they get converted, they do get changed just a little bit. So that's another reason why we said, hey, everyone submitted ProRes.
Sure.
It makes our life easy. It works on Mac and PC now, so we're all good. And then we convert all the films to DCP, which we've been doing for years. In the early days, it took 8 hours for an 8-minute film, and now I think we've got it down to about 15 to 20 minutes per film.
Yeah.
4Ks take more, 2 to 3 times longer than a 2K. And obviously there are still some people submitting in HD, which is fine. And as far as the resolutions go, basically there's only 2 containers for film, flat and scope. It's really that easy. There's the containers are 2K flat, 2K scope, and then they got 4K flat, 4K scope. Not every theater can do 4K, but the cool thing about the projectionists and the servers that they have is that when they get a 4K film, it'll automatically scale down to 2K if the projector can't handle it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
They've already kind of figured that out.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a 2K film playing on a 4K projector, you're not going to get that extra resolution. It's still going to be a 2K film.
Right.
But at least, and we try to film all of our, that's another thing too, is we're not trying to use, low budget, small mom and pop, theaters everywhere. We're always trying to use the biggest, best, most modern theater that we can find.
Right.
High, laser projectors with great color, great sound. The Imagine Theater was amazing. They were the first theater that had Atmos that we played at. And I was trying to get an Atmos film submitted so we could use the Atmos surround sound system. But a lot of people do 5.1. I was the first. When I did my film, I did 7.1. So I'm the first and only one to do 7.1.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, so we accept all those formats. For a while there, we were really nervous about getting 3D films because we like, is your film 2D or 3D? 3D craze has gone away. Which is great. And also, not every they have to have a special color wheel in their theater, so it has to be specially equipped for 3D. And not every theater has that. So 3D is only available in certain theaters too. So
have you ever had someone approach you with a VR movie?
no, not yet.
Not yet.
No, that'd be amazing. I don't know. We have to stick with what they provide, right? Right now, there's no VR theater to screen it yet.
Yeah.
Well, not that I know of, but we'll book the Sphere for next year, guys. Just kidding. Yeah, so a lot of prep work goes into it to make a good screening. You know, we care about the audio quality. We care about the video quality. If your film is wrong, I don't disqualify you. I call you up and say, hey, give me a new one quick.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Here's what the problem is. And I tell you what the problem is. I generally tell you how to fix it, and then get me another one as fast as possible. And that generally works, you know?
Yeah.
If we have 70 teams submitting 70 wrong films, it would be a disaster.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to get everyone to fix it. So by having really stringent quality controls and very specific guidelines, that gets 95% of the people across the finish line properly.
Right.
You know, and then I'd only have to deal with the 5%.
Yeah.
You know, but when I say, you know, I call them my problem children every year. Yes. You were one of my problem children. I'll call you up and like, yes, okay, do this, please, blah, blah, blah. You know, but I don't hate you. I don't think you're awful. I just think you made a mistake, and let's learn from this, and let's move forward. And yeah.
So you brought up the making your own nomination clips for the awards, filmmakers making their own nomination clips for the awards. So do the judges see those clips and base their decisions based off that, or do they watch the full movie and base it? Okay.
So the judging system is broken into two parts, and back when we had peer review, we don't have that anymore. You were able to see the entire system and how it functioned. And you were a judge.
I was.
Yes. Okay, so you've seen the system.
It is a lot of hours.
Yes.
For them.
Yeah.
It's fun though.
Yeah, and it's pretty well laid out. So basically, the first thing you're going to do is watch all the films, and we've got them sectioned. We got them separated by genre. So it's like you can watch all the comedies and all the dramas. So that helps with that whole genre mashing thing we're talking about. It doesn't skip from documentary to drama, back and forth, back and forth. You kind of pick which section you want to watch first.
Gotcha.
And under specialty, there is, you know, silent films, music videos. So you don't know what you're going to get next, but you've already known that because you picked specialty.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So the point is that you'll watch all the films in their entirety, and you'll grade them on multiple things. I think there's like 10 criteria probably: directing, editing, overall acting, audio, and you don't do the orchestration nomination or the best audio there. That's in the second half. So it's like you're just kind of saying, how does this picture look to me? How does it sound? How does it feel? You know, is there a good story behind it? Is the director, you know, keeping all the actors on task, and does it look legit? Am I buying the characters? You know.
Yeah.
And so all the details like set dressing, things like that, you're not thinking about in the original layout. You're just thinking of the overall picture. And then we included a special thing called X Factor, right? And so that's like, it could be anything you want. You just say, did this film touch me emotionally? Yeah, I'm going to give it a 10 for X Factor. You know, did this film have a really cool, it was a really poor film, but it was an awesome story, you know?
Yeah.
X Factor, 10. And that really affects the score as well, you know? So the judges can use that X Factor for anything they want. They can just give it a bump. You know, like, I don't know why, but, you know, I gave it 7s on everything else, but I think this film is amazing, so I'm going to give it a 10, you know, on the X Factor. So we do have that, which is kind of cool. And then after you've done all the films and seen everything, now remember, you've seen, we get, you know, 50 to 70 submissions.
Yeah.
That gets pre-screened and whittled down by a panel of about 10 judges down to like the top 30. And then the top 30 get sent off to the other second judging panel. So they actually get judged twice.
Second judging panel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we call them the pre-judges and the judges. Okay. So the pre-judges basically just scrape the bottom. You know, like, yeah, we know you're not going to make top 10.
Yeah.
You know, like, so you don't have a chance. So we'll scrape those off, and then we'll send the rest through the judging system. And the judging system, like I said, has the 2 parts. And once they get to the second part is where they see the nomination clips. So the great thing about the nomination clips is because we used to just have JPEGs, right?
Yeah.
And we said, why not just make it a clip? It's, to our system, it's the same. Doesn't matter if it's a video or a JPEG, it just shows up there.
Right.
So let's let them have a video. And then that instantly reminds the judge of the film they've already seen, right? It gives them a more detailed point of like your lighting, right? You might find the scene that you like best shows off your best lighting. The judges don't have to scan through your film to find out, did they have any good lighting in this film? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You've shown them, this is my best lighting clip. This is my best the best acting clip for this actor, the most emotional scene or whatever they, because you can show an actor pacing in a kitchen. Great. Is that really emotional? Does that say anything? Yeah. No, you want to show the scene where it shows off their talent. So all those clips then remind the judges of what they already saw, and they simply pick one. So they'll see 10 to 15 clips, sometimes 20, and they'll click, yes, that's the best one. And so that's really easy. Okay. Very time consuming, but the system is actually really easy. And I was reading a Google article about a jelly bean jar, right? How many jelly beans are in this jar, right? And they asked a variety of people to guess the number. Yeah. And what they found is the more people they asked, the more accurate the number. And so I used that kind of concept, and I said, the more judges I get involved, the more accurate their results will be.
Sure. Yeah.
So we're one of the, I don't know how many judges other film festivals have, but we're pushing 30 judges now.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have you selected those for this year?
We've got a lot of them on board already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I didn't realize it was that. And that goes back to my objectivity point of it. It sounds like they actually have almost like a scorecard for individual departments.
Yep.
Okay.
And so what that tends to do, unfortunately, is if somebody is a new filmmaker, but they have an amazing story, right? But they kind of screwed up their lighting, they kind of screwed up their sound, they kind of screwed up this, and maybe they didn't have the best locations, maybe they didn't have the best costumes, they're probably not going to do as well in Z-Fest, because those things matter to us. They matter, the quality and the presentation,
Right.
It's not just like, let's make something. So we do actually weight directing and acting, Those 2 scores are more heavily weighted than the other scores.
I see.
Okay. But at the same time, they're not weighted enough that they're going to bring you to the top if you make a really great story, right? But it's not presented very well. So you kind of have to have the whole ball of wax.
Yeah.
And, there's, unfortunately too, there are some films that do like 6s or 7s in every category, and they don't get nominated for anything. And it's like, what the heck's happening there? Right. It's because you didn't quite cross that line in any one of the categories to be the top 5 nominees, because we're going to take the 8s, 9s, and 10s, and you got the 7. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there was 10, 8, 9s, and 10s. We didn't get down to the 7s. But because your film had 7s across the board, it was a really good film. It just wasn't exceptional in any area.
So do you have any kind of, like, if a handful of, say, 4 or 5 films is just hitting all the top marks for each category, is there any kind of amending you do, going back and looking at other stuff to where we say, well, let's give this film a break and bring it in here so it's not just the same nominations of each film for every single award?
We don't amend per se. We do go back and evaluate, like if someone's on the border, like let's just say top 15, right? We're going to screen the top 15 at the Best of Festival, even though only the top 10 are getting awards.
Right.
The top. So that 13 through 18 number, that is one of the hardest things we have to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, we have the scores, but the scores can be literally like 0.5 apart.
Right.
And it's like, yes, this film did score better. You know what I'm saying? But and then to alleviate the judges waiting, we actually run the films through a whole nother process of normalization, which is interesting. So the concept is very simple. It's like every judge judges a little bit differently, right?
Yeah.
So some judges are really free with their score. Everything gets a 9. Everything gets a 10. Everything, you know, I love everything. It's great. And some judges are like, oh, no, this film's a 2. This film's a 3. Mm-hmm. You know, they're way down here. Well, if the judge is judging low and very critical, their scores are going to be basically, the numbers of their scores are going to be thrown aside, because the higher scores are going to, you know, overpower them, right?
I see.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if you're judging 8s and 9s, you're going to push a critical judge out of the judging system.
I see.
So what we do is we take the judges themselves, right, and we take and assign a number to every one of their films. So we throw away the scores after the judging is done, right? We use the score as a lever system, right? Mm-hmm. So the top score, let's just say it got 1,200 points, right? That film is now, let's say there's 55 films that year, right? That film now gets 55 points. Get it?
Yeah.
And then it goes all the way down to 1. So it's a rank. We call it ranking.
Gotcha.
Get it? So the score is no longer relevant. So if the judge weighs low, his relevancy is exactly the same as a judge that does high, because it goes to ranking rather than scores.
I gotcha.
So we put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah, you really have.
Yeah. So we try to be as fair and objective as possible.
Okay. And so selecting the judges, are the judges always involved in film in some capacity, or are they regular people?
When we started, we only selected people in the industry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Professional editors. And the nice thing about working with Z Systems is that they sell equipment to all of these people. Right. Mm-hmm. The ad agencies, the editors. I mean, I was one of the ones who actually went around town building video editing systems for these guys. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So I do know some of the judges personally, which is kind of nice. But I believe it or not, I only have communication with them once a year. We're like, do you want to be a judge? Yes, thank you. You know, yes or no, please. Do you have time this year? You know.
Yeah.
So like Oscar Oboza, I don't know how to say his last name. Anyways, he is a great colorist. Mm-hmm. He's like one of the top-notch colorists in the Twin Cities. Right. He was one of our judges for many years. Still is. This year he doesn't have time. But the point is that we have some really great people in the industry looking at your work, right? Which is fantastic. Then we decided, hey, just like that Google thing, the more judges, the better. So we decided, let's get some film students involved. Let's get some other people with different eyes, you know. And now we're trying to broaden out to include more younger people, you know, and get a lot more. So we have, out of our 30 judges this year, I want to say at least 5 or 6 of them are now under 25, you know. Most of the people are older. They got time to do it, you know, I don't know. Right. Anyways, they've committed for years and years. And like Sony is one of our sponsors, so one of the ladies at Sony was one of our judges for years and years, which was nice. Yeah. Louis Anderson was one of a celebrity judge. Oh, wow. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we had some, you know, like, does Louis have a film degree? No, but does he know comedy? Sure. Right. You know, does he know film? Sure. Yeah. He works in the film industry. So it was nice having these people on board. But we broadened it out a little bit, so we do have some laymen involved. We have some students involved, and we have, and there's a couple regular people in there as well. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of people who actually know what they're talking about. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I imagine that the judges can't be part of films that are partaking.
Correct.
Yeah. Do you ever worry that, because I'm assuming, you know, if these are local film people, that they know other people, have worked with people who may be submitting?
Most of our judges are in like the actual community of like ad agencies and stuff like that.
Sure.
So they might know somebody, but I'm pretty sure that the judges are really fair and accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really interesting because you can see patterns. Yeah. You know, Google. That's what Google does every day. Mm-hmm. Looks for patterns, right? You can see patterns, and we did have a case where one or two judges were like, that film that everyone else thought was amazing, they ranked it like really low. Mm-hmm. And it's like, are you picking on somebody? You know what I'm saying? Do you know these people and you just want to like take their films down? And so after looking at that, like, did they do that more than once? yes, they did. Okay, we're going to throw all their scores out and we're not going to invite them back as a judge. So, yeah, that's how critical we are.
Yeah.
So they don't know that they got thrown out.
Right.
But they probably...
Have you ever had to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not very often. Only like 1 or 2 years.
Okay.
But yes, we do. We watch for that.
Yeah.
So if there's some scores that don't look right, legit, like really, you gave that film a 3 and everyone else gave that film a 10. Really, are you being fair?
Right.
Yeah. At least if it was a 7 or 8, I'd think about it. But
right.
2 or 3 for a 10, yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
30 people said 10, you said 3. I don't buy it. Yeah.
So to kind of close it out here, it's been a great discussion. Thank you. What would you say you recommend to people who might be considering doing Z-Fest but haven't quite committed to making a film of their own yet? What would your biggest advice be to them?
Look at your budget. Obviously don't spend too much money. Don't go deep in debt to make your first film. And I would say try to keep it simple. I joked after I wrote my first sitcom, right? I decided to write a sitcom and I did 3 episodes, the pilot and 2 more episodes, right? And then I said, let's just shoot this ourselves. So we did. And it was 23 locations, 50 some actors, and just months of work, right? To get all this stuff together. And at the end, I'm just like, wow, that was just so much work. And I'm just like, you know what? My next film is going to be 2 actors in 1 location, and one of the actors is going to be a dummy. And then Castaway came out with Tom Hanks, and I'm like, that's my film. 2 actors, one's a beach ball, and he's on an island. Okay, that's perfect. It can be done.
Yeah.
And so you'll see that a lot of Z-Fest films, if they keep it down to just a couple characters, at least for your first couple films, focus on just a couple of characters. Try to make your story super interesting, something that hasn't been told yet or whatever, and just keep it low budget, keep it on track, and focus on getting your team together ahead of time. Try to find some good people in town. And the nice thing about us versus like a 48, right? 48, everyone's busy the same weekend. They only got 48 hours to make their film. With Z-Fest, we're open so many weekends that you can get the same people working on multiple films, which is really kind of brought the community together, I think, because it's like, oh yeah, I want my film to win, but I worked on these 4 other films, so I want them to do good.
Right. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So it's definitely friendly competition, and it's very organic. It's great the way this has grown up. It's done it all by itself. I haven't really manipulated it. And, it's just people are really friendly and really fun towards each other, and I think it's a great time.
Yeah, but that does tap into one thing that I did want to ask you about too, is seeing the same people over and over again. I think especially less crew people, more actors. Do like judges or people get exhausted of seeing the same people?
There was one year when I think there was an actor who was in 5 or 6 films that year. I think that gets a little old, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I saw that guy 2 minutes ago in a different film. But remember, this is Minneapolis.
Right.
We got a limited number of fantastic actors, and good for the actors that are out there doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're building their portfolios.
Absolutely.
And you never know what's going to happen on set, right? So one film may turn out great that you thought was going to be awful, and then another film you thought was going to be the bomb, it turns out horrible.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you just never know.
So you also mentioned like the potential story behind something in the film could contribute to like the homeless guy. Obviously that's a documentary, but let's say you had like an actor who was acting for the first time. Would that contribute in any capacity to the judges saying, oh, that's more impressive?
I don't think so.
No. Because
we don't know. The judges aren't really looking at the credits. Do you look at the credits when you judge? No. Nobody has time.
Right.
So they're just judging the film for what it is, which is exactly what we want them to be doing.
Right.
We don't want them to be knowing who's behind the scenes. That's our job. When we give out the awards, we just say, who do you think was best? What was the best clip?
Right.
So they're actually looking at the clip, and they're looking at the film and the finished product to determine what the result should be, not who's my friend, did I know this person?
Right.
Like, nobody has time to do that. The judges aren't given very much time to get this job done.
Right.
And they don't have time to monkey around.
Yeah, it's hours and hours and hours of work.
Yeah.
And especially if you want to do it right, because you know, I know when I did it, I watched the films over and over and over and over, because there's always something that you miss, you know. Even with like having the clips that are sent, it's like I would watch the whole film over again. It's very time consuming.
Yeah. And we don't stop the judges from watching them over and over again. They can watch them as many times as they want. And they also get a full list of all the films that were excluded. So they, even though they only see the top 30, they can watch all 70.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying? And if there's a nomination clip, okay, so this is a fun thing to talk about. So let's just say Best Kiss. That's an MTV style award, right?
Yep.
You don't have to have the best film to have the best kiss, right?
Right.
It's just that scene.
Yep.
So you make a horrible film and you just have this amazing moment in it, right? You still could win Best Kiss. Even though the judges aren't going to see your film, they will see your nomination clip. And then they can go back to your film and watch what you did.
Oh, I got you.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The nomination clip can move forward on its own, even if your film doesn't.
So have you ever had it the other way around, where somebody made a really good film and then maybe they didn't nominate themselves?
Then they don't win.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've actually had that problem a couple times where it's like, why didn't you nominate yourself? This was really good.
Yeah.
And we say on the website, you know, it's like, if you don't nominate, you cannot win.
Right.
You know, which is...
So the way the algorithm works, what if somebody went in there and they put in their YouTube link for Best Actor or something like that, and they accidentally just by nature hit submit? Does that, now they can't put in any more links, or can they continue to put in links and submit again?
Generally, we like to have it all done at once.
Yeah.
If there's an issue submitting or problems, we can manually go in and reset the system. We've had to do it a couple times where somebody's made a mistake and I submitted too soon, or, you know, I need to update that clip or whatever. And it's, you know, before the deadline, so we have time to go do it. If it's after the deadline, I'm like, no.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I see. So, yeah, because I just don't know how all those algorithms work.
There's really, it's all human. There's no real algorithms in it.
Okay.
So everything is looked at by human eyes. Everything is moved forward by humans. Everything is, There's no AI involved in anything we do.
Okay.
You know, even the math at the end is just, you know, lots of spreadsheets that are looked over.
And so the way it works, do you get some notification when a submission comes in, or?
We know when the judges are done.
Okay.
And we actually, a lot of times we have to call the judges and say, hey, I know you think you're done, but you're missing three things.
Sure.
And they're like, you know, and the unfortunate thing is our system is not even that advanced where we can like pinpoint what they're missing. Sometimes we have to go through it manually, and it's like, oh, this is what you're missing. You know, you're missing the Best Kiss nomination, Best Fight Scene nomination, and you're missing the judging scores for one of your films. You know,
have you ever had it where nobody submitted for one of the awards?
No.
It's an award category that nobody... Okay.
No, everything's always at something there. Occasionally we'll have a year where we don't get a documentary. Yeah. So then we'll close that category down.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. So, I mean, we'll close a whole category down. But that's, you know... But no, there's no... And documentary seems like the only one that we have to close down every once in a while. Yeah. Because there's always drama. There's always action. There's always horror. There's always something. So...
Well, yeah, this has been really insightful into how it all works, and yeah, I think you know, especially for someone who's making their first Z-Fest film, it's really rewarding to hear how it all goes down in the inner workings. So
keep it simple, focus on everything, try to make everything, and if you want to win an award, you have to cross that threshold on at least one of those categories. You know, because if you do 7s across the board, you're going to make a great film, and it's going to be well received, but it may not win a lot of awards. And that. It brings up the best point of all. It's just because you don't win an award at Z-Fest doesn't mean you're not going to kick ass at another film festival, because we're pretty hardcore. Right. You know, so we hold high standards. And there's films that didn't do well at our festival at all have gone on to win multiple awards at other festivals. Because there's a lot of festivals out there, and you might be the exceptional film at another festival, but you just got to pushed a little bit further down the line in our festival.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great conversation, Adam. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So that was Adam Colt. He's the organizer and director of Z-Fest, great film festival. They do a great job every year. Highly recommend you participate. And check us out on the next episode of Film Network.